everybody, I'm Tom Vassell.
And I'm Mike DeLisio.
And today we're taking a look at a game called Babylon with an absolutely gorgeous cover from Geek Attitude Games, designed by Oliver Gregor. This is a game that, based on the pictures of it, was on my most anticipated list for the Spiel Fair at Essen. I was very excited about it, mostly because I like three-dimensional type games.
I agree, yeah. Now, I don't think it was on my anticipated list because it just, for some reason, it kind of escaped my notice. But at Essen, there was an intense amount of attention placed on the game, and that's how it got on my radar. And it's something that I did pick up at Essen as well.
And it's also, there's a lot of games about building the Hanging Gardens. there just is. This one is one, though you're actually building them. So the Hanging Gardens is the one of the 7 wonders of the world. If I could go back in time and see it, I think this is the one I would pick. But anyway, let's take a look at how the game plays. Very short overview, and we'll be right back. The game is going to revolve around a box here, which has 3 levels of terrace tiles in it that you'll put 16 on each level. There's 4 symbols on the bottom level, 3 symbols per tile on the second level, and 2 on the top level. On your turn, you are going to take one of these tiles, and then you're going to get single pillars, basically based on the number of tiles that are the same level or high or lower than the tile that you took. So if I took this one, I would get 1, 2, 3, 4 single pyramids. You also get them for the wall. So this one would also give me 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Basically, any tile at the beginning is going to give me 4. If I take this one and someone takes this one, they're only going to get 1 for the wall next to it. Now, there's also a flower on each one of these, and each player is going to start with their own area of Babylon. And if you take a tile whose flower matches your lotus here on the tile that you start with, then you get an extra single pillar. Now, you could store these pillars in spots here next to the board. You have spots to store pillars, but at any point you want to, you can start building. Now, when you build your first terrace, that's pretty simple. You're just going to put some pillars in the spots here. Now, what you can do is you can use only 3 pillars to put up your terrace. You can use 4. If you do 3, though, the spot where you don't put 1, you're going to put one of these tokens here. Now, that's worth a point at the end of the game. This Belvedere here, but it also blocks you from building on that. You can also build on top of other terraces. So, for example, I could later on put this here, put this here, put a pillar here, put a pillar here, and I could build this on top of that. Isn't that nice? Now, what you're trying to do is you're trying to be able to build other things. There's different symbols. There's statues. Your first statue, you can just put out for free. But after that, each statue has to be in the same line or column as another statue. A fountain means you have to have 2 fountains directly next to each other. So when you have 2 next to each other, yay, I can put a park there. And a bridge is kind of the same thing. And I'm showing you this here with them not elevated, but they would have to be elevated. A bridge needs to have a spot in between them. And then finally, a staircase piece. You would start on one level for the staircase, and you would need another thing with a staircase like that, and it would go like this. So one would have to be higher than the other. After everybody has placed a piece out and taken a terrace, and you don't have to place a terrace, and you can do 1 or 2, but you can always save 1 here for later. So you're going to try to get as many built as you can, and you only have so many spots to save pillars. But after that, you'll turn over an end of round token, which will do something. This one, for example, is going to give everybody an extra single pillar. But sometimes they're bad. They take things away. At the end of the game, when the last one of these tokens, these turn-end tokens, is over, and there's a number of tokens basically based on the number of players in the game, you're going to score. Let me just show you the scoring pad. It's pretty simple. You're going to get a point for each statue times the number of level that it's on. Same thing with fountains, bridges. They're going to give you 3. Here you're combining the 2 levels. So if I have a staircase that goes from bridge level 2 to 3, it's going to give me 5 points. For each grouping of all 4 of them, I get a point. For each grouping of all 4 lotuses I have on my terraces, I get a point. Belvederes give me 1. and I'm going to get points equal to my highest level times 2. Most points is the winner. So the thing that drew me to this was the three-dimensional factor to it, but I do want to mention some problems I have with the components of the game. I have just carried the game from me doing the overview to here in the room doing it, and there's box lift here because the pieces fell out, if you turn it sideways at all. The component container, I'm not opposed to using it as the, drawing those tiles. That's fine. That works great and everything. But I don't love using it for the pieces because they're easy to pull out in the beginning, but your fingers have to go down farther. And like I said, it doesn't hold them in very tightly. And more importantly, piece-wise, though, maybe my copy is an anomaly, but a lot of times games have these things like, hey, there's bendy swords and stuff, and you have to use hot water to kind of get the plastic. This is that kind of game. And unfortunately, it really affects, in this particular case, it affects the stairs because the stairs need to go on 2 different tiles, and so you're putting them on top of each other. And so that combined with, as interesting as the 3D and building aspect of this is, you have to be very careful not to knock anything over. It's very easy to knock things over because it is literally just plastic pieces with cards on. You're not slotting anything in place. So when we played, something did get knocked over, and it's just kind of a pain. And finally, the statues, it's funny that statues can be used as pillars in this game. And in the overview, if you want to, you can use a statue as a pillar. And that's because at a glance, they look the exact same on the board. It is a wash of yellow. So I want to like the components more. The picture in the back of the box makes this look way cooler than it actually looks in person.
Yes, agreed on all accounts, Tom, honestly. So if it's an anomaly, then it's an anomaly that we both had in our copies of the game, and specifically with those stairs. They are the ones that I think are the most kind of difficult to deal with and most likely to be kind of knocked off center or however you want to call it. I think if you had all of these pieces painted and, you could have a gorgeous looking game, and it's still going to be something that's going to draw people's attention, right? I mean, there is still an impressive element of the 3D kind of boards that are on the table. But I agree with you. It's just not quite there yet. It's not, those pieces really should have been a little bit more structurally sound, I suppose. The statue thing doesn't bother me only in the sense that once a statue becomes a pillar, you don't account for it in scoring. So I don't think it really matters that they look the same because you're not scoring them anyway as long as it's being used as a tower. But everything else I do see as a fundamental issue. Like, I was having to adjust and readjust every time I played this game. I've had to kind of like try to get things so that they don't fall. And that could be frustrating and annoying, and it takes you out of the puzzle building kind of like fun you get because you're worried about knocking stuff over. At least I am.
Well, I'm going to come right out here, folks, and say I'm not a huge fan of the gameplay either. There's a couple problems I have with it. One of the biggest problems, and this may be a minor problem to some, is I think the idea of taking a tile and getting single pillars is so fundamentally overwrought, and it shouldn't be. Basically, they just don't want you to grab the lower ones. I know that they don't want you to grab the lower ones, but they're like, okay, so you get one pillar for each side it's next to for the tile that's the same thing, or a tile that's lower. Also, if it's next to the board. Also, if it's next to the bottom of the board. I'm like, that's everything. Oh, it's everything except the tile that's higher than it. And then getting the one that matches your color feels like such a weird rule in this game. And I get it. You want to take that one to get one extra pyramid, but you usually don't want that one. Or like at the beginning of the game, you're probably looking for some specific symbols. So you obviously will pick one of your own to take. But I don't know. I felt like that's a decision that didn't matter, especially at the end of the game when they're trying to get you to have all 4 color tiles anyway. So the taking pyramids, I would have been happy if they just said, take 4 pyramids every turn. And I get it. You don't want people grabbing the lower, better tiles because they have more symbols on them. But it just felt like a complicated way to do that.
Yeah, it's inelegant. It just is. It's inelegant, and it's something that, invariably will trip up people the first time you're teaching them. It has been for me. And here's the thing, I think, is that it feels like it should be a more impactful decision than it is. Essentially, you've got one tile that's going to be on the side of your board. At the beginning of the game, it's going to be the starting tile of your color. And you always are going to have a choice between the one that you drew or the one that's on your board. Well, that never seems to be a very impactful decision to make. It seems like it's always kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. And I want it to be more of an agonizing decision, and it almost never is. So I agree with you there. I feel like it's indicative of a lot of things about this game where it's like, it feels like it should be better than it actually plays out in practice, right? Like you see the board, you're like, oh, that's really cool. This 3-dimensional thing, I love that. And then in practice, it's just not quite as satisfying as it should be. And the idea of having to make a decision between, if you have this limited decision, one of 2 tiles, it feels like that should be an agonizing decision. It almost never is. The scoring feels like it should be more exciting than it actually is. And so it seems like it's a game of expectations that are not quite ever met.
Yeah, I was excited about the scoring when I saw, like, any game that says you score points for going high. I'm like, yes, I'm going to go as high as I can. First of all, that's a very minor scoring at the end of the game. You get 2 times your highest level. And I was like, oh, that's not that big of a deal. You're better off, you want a bridge on level 3, for example, or you want stairs going from level 2 to 3. And the reason I keep saying the numbers 2 and 3 is because to go to 4 is a monumental difficulty. And I can't even imagine going to 5. The game, first of all, there's the physical idea of the stuff falling over, but it's not easy to build in this game. You're not allowed to put a tile directly over another tile, which means all your tiles need to crisscross. Okay, that's fine. It's going to build a pyramid. But no, because the bridges require there to be a space in between. And so pretty quickly in the game, you go, wow, I'm kind of running out of room to put things where I want to put them. And one of the things I love about games when I build stuff is at the end, I lose. And I go, well, I lost, but still, look at this cool thing I built. In Babylon, I'm like, I felt like the game ended before I built something cool. I didn't think the game was too short, but I felt like I didn't get to do a lot of cool things. And that coupled with these annoying events that happen in between rounds, which they affect everybody. So it's not like everyone gets an extra pillar. Yay! Everyone loses a pillar. Ooh, I hate you. This round. I was kind of depending on that pillar. And the game started leaving me like, why did I do this?
Yeah, it feels a little undercooked. Like, I think there's a foundation of an interesting game here. I think it needs development. I really, not just, you could talk about that on the production side and you can talk about that on the design side, right? I think that with better pieces, maybe with, as you mentioned, a way to kind of anchor those pieces in, that would help. I think design-wise, there would be ways to make the game a bit more interactive than it is. Now, I don't want somebody tearing down what I've built, but honestly, there's really not a lot of interaction at all. Puzzle games don't have to be. This is a multiplayer solitaire game, and I do tend to like those when they're done well. This just doesn't feel like it's really, I don't really care what other people are doing. I just don't. And so, again, I think that it needs some development. There's a core of what could be a good game here, but as it's this finished product, it doesn't feel there. It feels undercooked.
Yeah, so for me, this is a 5 out of 10. I want to, here's the thing, I don't hate the game. I want to like it more. Like Mike said, I like the idea of, I'm a big fan of building stuff up. I always am a fan of games where you put tiles on top of each other, although most of the time they're just tiles. This one with the pillars and stuff sounds cooler, but because of the unsteadiness of it, and unfortunately, it came out at the same time as another game which gives me the same feel, and that's Monkey Palace from Lego. And that there's a singular thing you're building. You're not each building your own thing, but you're still doing the same thing. You're still trying to build high towers, but it's Lego, so the things attach together well, and it's also getting pieces. There's a lot of similarities between the two games, honestly. And the Lego Palace, the Monkey Palace game, does it really well and offers me that same puzzle feeling with a bit of interactiveness because we're all building on the same thing that would stop me from playing this one. So unfortunately, this is a pass for me. I was really excited about it, but it just hasn't done it for me.
This is really funny, Tom, because my first impression of the game was better than it's become, and Monkey Palace is a part of that. It really is, because I feel the same way. They have very similar kind of design goals, I think, but Monkey Palace just does it better. I'm actually also at a 5, Tom. I think when I first played it, I would have been closer to a 7, but it's a game of diminishing returns. Every time I've played it since that first play, I've actually found more and more issues with it. So unfortunately, it's a miss for me too. It's one that I really, had high hopes for, and it just didn't quite get there. Hey, if they came out with a second edition that addressed some of these things, maybe I'd take another look at it. But at the point it is now, it just doesn't make it with the other games that have come out pretty recently that do certain things like it.
Well, there you go, folks. Hanging Gardens falls again. Anyway, until next time, I'm Tom Vasel.
I'm Mike DeLisio.
And that's been Babylon. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you like this review or whatever you just watched, wasn't it amazing? Check out our channel, Dice Tower. We have all kinds of things. We review games, we do top 10s, we play games live. It's all about board games, but especially the people who play them. Check out Dice Tower YouTube channel.